And welcome to the This Week in Worcester podcast. I am Tom Marino, editor of This Week in Worcester. I am here with my co-conspirator in Gab, Mr. John Edward Keogh.
Co-conspirator. Listen, I don't need any indictments or anything. I'm good with all that. What's up, buddy?
What's going on? How was your week since we last did this?
Okay, so obviously we did a very very special edition last week where we went early, and we had the screening of the Dirty Darren Poetry Show documentary at Ralph's Rock Diner, and it was a smash success. Some shouting and clapping and standing up and cheering, and it was exciting. There was say about 50, 60 people that came out in the middle of the night on Sunday night at Ralph's.
Nice.
So it was cool, and I enjoyed it very much. We're having the red carpet premiere October 11th at the Parkview Room. So very cool day, very cool. It was cool. It's really, really cool to see the thing that you worked on for so long up there on the screen, to what Manny did, what Leanne did. It was just really, really cool.
Excellent. Programming note of sorts. I had I went on for about an hour and 20 minutes or so, an interview with Rick Cipro on Wednesday, who is the president of the IBPO local. I forget what their local number is. The union that represents the kind of the management at the Worcester Police Department, which is he represents lieutenants, sergeants, and captains. His union does, and I frankly, I met one twice before we did this, and was frankly kind of surprised that we got along pretty well. I think like a lot of people, right? They have a public persona, or they are perceived in a way publicly, and then when you sit back down and talk to them, they're actually quite different than that. Plenty of stuff we didn't agree with, but had a good conversation. Nobody got upset. Nobody yelled at anybody. The way it's supposed to be.
Nobody yelled at anybody? Dang.
No.
I checked in. I watched a little bit of it. I checked in during the live. Got to support my boy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was good though. I thought it was interesting. I hope however you feel about issues related to the police department, I thought it was an interesting discussion for sure. So check it out if you have time.
I thought that it was a good conversation you guys had, and I think it's interesting that to get people engaging on this subject is a good idea. I think that for a long time maybe there was a different approach in the media locally, and so I like that that you were able to get them on, and I think that it shows that maybe other people that watch this show that I don't know if they know that I can see them in all the little boxes, that you could come on and talk about stuff too. Tom's a good dude to talk to, so get on here. You know what I mean? I talk to him every week. I like him.
Or if you reach out directly and privately, and I'm happy to listen to anybody.
Yeah. You can even cuss him out if you want. He'll take it like a champ.
Yeah, if there's a reason for it. Like if I did something and I deserve it, I might agree with that. I'm not perfect. I couldn't be further from perfect. So on the docket for this here edition of This Week in Worcester podcast, as is typical, a whole bunch of uplifting stuff. I say that with full sarcasm. Another, again, pedestrian involved fatality or pardon me, a crash involving a pedestrian. Actually, two pedestrians. One has passed away that night, and another was injured. This took place at Clover Street and South Ludlow Street, are right in there, which is Webster Square-ish area, James Street-ish area. I didn't really. I just felt like it should be acknowledged. We kind of talked about this, the broader subject with 25 miles an hour a couple weeks ago, and a whole bunch of different other issues. But wanted to acknowledge that another person has lost their life in Worcester streets. Don't know the details of what happened. Nonetheless, tragic all the same.
No, so I mean, when the mayor was in on Friday to talk to Manny, he brought up Vision Zero a bunch of times, and it really does, that really should be the goal, is not anybody dying while walking or driving. It just shouldn't be the way it is. And how do you get it? As much as I guess it's a victory to get the speed limit lowered. How do you change people's behavior as a society, right? Because I just, we're so car centric. Everything's, these big vehicles and, the struggle of people wanting to go somewhere else, to move somewhere, to be able to be economically viable, the pressure of, rent sending, people out of the city. They have to move, they have to find a way out. And it's it's not sustainable, and so with the fact that people keep dying, and Manny had asked that question to the mayor, like, has it gone up? And it really feels like it's getting worse, and I don't know why. It seems appreciably worse, that the driving behavior and also, this is a normal Massachusetts thing, but people do not necessarily follow the crosswalks and all those things as well. But should they fear having not been in the crosswalk? No, I don't think that either. So it's like,
No,
how do
and
you do all that? I don't know. It's really, it's sad. People dying walking.
no, it's terrible. And I mean, I can't say that like I've noticed some sort of great difference when I'm out and about.
Yeah.
Uh, it doesn't seem like, I mean, people still drive like a-holes, like they always
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's changed. That's leading to all of these. Either leaving people in critical condition, or in very bad shape, or dead. I don't know what's changed. I mean, this has happened here before. Of course, it didn't just start just this year or whatever, or in the last couple of years. I mean, people have been killed, but not at. It seems like the rate at which people are being killed or
Yeah.
seriously injured is crazy.
It seems like every week we come on here and we're talking about, another person dying. And every time I
Mhm.
look at I look at online somewhere, someone passed away, or they're critically injured, and that's just in Worcester. Right? And if you start looking outside the city and looking at, other municipalities around New England, Hartford and Springfield and Boston and Brockton and, Manchester, New Hampshire, it happens all over the place. It's like people are consistently getting killed in this way. Um, just doesn't make a lot of sense. I understand the distracted driver thing is probably the biggest difference in the last 10 years, is people with their devices and, this with the phone and all this other stuff. And even the people that do put it up on the dashboard, is that really how you should be driving, with the thing on the screen, like right in front of you? And I know we all struggle with it. I do. Sometimes when I'm at the stoplight, I reach down for the thing, and then of course when I'm on GPS, it's hard not to look at it, right? Like, where am I going? And I don't know, man. It's just it just doesn't seem like some of the solutions that are proposed are gonna change anything, unless there's a radical change in behavior. We were talking about it before the show. Do we want the police enforcing the behavior to create the change? Like, do you want to just have 10,000 traffic cops get hired, and then just every single infraction is an arrested offense, and that's the only way you change it? I don't know that that's what we want either, right? So,
Yeah,
how do
no,
you,
and I mean, some people are gonna not like this, but this absolutely, the situation is unsustainable and not okay. We
right,
do not want a whole bunch of new unnecessary interactions between police and the public.
yeah,
We
that's
do
not a
not
good
want
idea.
that. No,
Right.
and that's not saying anything bad about anybody,
No,
or it's just those situations can escalate, and it does nobody any good.
no,
Um, enforcement certainly has to be a piece of it, but like we were saying just before we came on, um, the thing there that checks your speed, I don't know what those are called, the roadside radar there that checks your speed and displays your speed, reminding
those
you,
things,
hey,
they
Dippy,
work
you're going
on,
fast.
yeah, they work on me for sure. I know that they change me. Those little digital displays that tell you you're going 10 miles over or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I this isn't my idea. I don't remember who said it, so I apologize. But somebody, maybe a counselor, I don't remember. But empty cars parked strategically where people. I mean, people see a cop car, now you just naturally slow down because that's what you do because you don't want a ticket, right? Um, So, some of those not littered, but placed across the city, in strategic areas, which might change some behavior, at least get people to slow down for a minute and kind of check themselves on how fast they're going, where they're at, what the speed limit is, all that, right? I think that could probably help. There's with the speed limit change, it sounds like they're going to do a robust period of education where they're not going to be writing tickets.
Are they gonna pull people over to teach them or something? Is that how they're gonna do it?
Well, they're doing like they did with distracted driving a couple times now over the last few years, that they just had a moratorium and they just pulled people over and just like did education, basically like, hey,
knock it off.
Not gonna get a ticket today, but you can't do this.
So Sean mentioned Ray's article. I saw Ray's, Cape Cod Ray. It's pretty good. His art. I read that article, and I would say that I really do agree with Sean that I don't think maybe Sean does agree, but maybe he's just making fun. Keep making fun of it.
That deserves to be on the screen.
It does. It does definitely deserve to be on there. So what I say is that most the statistics seem to say that the people who get tickets get tickets. So it's not like tickets change behavior. It seems like tickets increase people's behavior, and then there's people who just never get tickets. I saw that they mentioned the motorcycle cops, but I don't know what are they going to enforce. So here's my thing: it's like I understand speeding, right? Because speed hurts people for sure. There's no doubt about that. But speeding doesn't seem to me to be the most egregious behavior. The thing that really seems to be happening a lot is people doing aggressive driving, right? So it's like you're in the right-hand lane and you're jamming over to the left-hand lane with no turn signal, cutting people off, slamming through red lights. And that's always been like that. Like Tom said, everybody's always been kind of a jerk. But I don't know that I've ever seen someone pulled over for that. I've seen people pulled over for speeding for sure, right? And I will say this to the police officers who are going to be tasked with this thing, including dude, there's like 6 of them in the chat right now. So, but I would say this is that can we start like pulling over the pickup truck drivers who tailgate everybody within 4 inches of their life with their LED high beams from death that can like see into the future and then take turns left and right, and because they got these big giant the F-250s and the Chevy, those giant trucks, which by the way, I'm not an anti pickup truck guy. Drive your pickup truck till you're blue in the face, but man,
you just get out of my behind.
You just get out of my behind. Pickup truck drivers are the worst, bro. You guys all are terrible. They just on people's butt. Going, and by the way, if I'm going 90 in the breakdown lane and there's a car next to me in the middle lane, in the middle lane, I'm in the passing lane, I'm going 90. You do not need to come up on me doing 110 to get me to move over into the car that's next to me. Can you just wait for like 8 seconds so I can get over, and then you can get your Death Star through your black pickup truck. So there's why are the lights like that too? Can I complain about that for a second? Why are they so bright? What are they looking for? What do you need to see?
I don't know that is necessarily on topic. Let's not get a whole pickup truck drivers hate this week in Worcester campaign going, please. And for the record, I do not statistically know that pickup drivers are worse drivers than others. Anyway.
Of John, not a fact. But we'll take sponsorships from any pickup truck driver, so I'll completely change my opinion just like that if you pay us. No worries.
Shawnee, I'm not going to put that a comment on the screen, but I can't say that I disagree. So I keep using, and people kind of chuckle when I say it, and I don't mean it as I'm very serious at this, using this analogy, and I don't know, I've got a couple of chuckles from it. And I kind of look at people like, I'm not kidding, like this is not a joke. I forget her first name. Ayun leaked, who the girl who was hit was involved in a crash. Pedestrian, 13 years old on Shrewsbury Street. This girl's family are refugees, which is different, by the way, than people who have gotten asylum. That's much different and controversial at the moment. But people who are admitted as refugees go through a very, 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 very long process. And her family got out of South Sudan, a war-torn country that has been had very little time to look back on the last 30 years or so and look back favorably on. And her family and her got out of South Sudan, and she couldn't get across Shrewsbury Street. Something's very wrong. And I don't mean that as a joke. I don't know if people think I'm going for satire with that. I'm not. That's real.
Yeah, it is real. But not only that, though, the way that I'm sorry, the vast majority of you guys who drive on Shrewsbury Street, and I've been on that street too, and I've done it, is that there's the double light attempt, right? We're always trying to make the two lights. And if you hit it at the right time, you can get green, 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 green. You can make it all the way to the top, and either go down Belmont or head into Shrewsbury, head on Route 9. Everybody does it. So, I'm totally like, it just doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me why people get upset when you're 100% right. This girl, why should she be hurt? Why should she be hurt at all? We can't chalk these things up to, it's just it's a tragedy, statistics.
Yeah.
It's not. These are preventable things. Like, these are legitimately preventable things, and it's something that at least as a society that says, still to this day, right? You still hear a lot of politicians professing how wonderful America is. If we're so wonderful, then why can't we stop this? Why can't we stop this? It doesn't make sense.
I'm not sure those two things are connected, but sure. It can still, in theory, be wonderful, but we can't. We're having trouble fixing this issue. But nonetheless, I don't want to. We talked a lot about this issue. I don't want to dwell. We also have a bunch of stuff to get to, so I'm gonna soldier on here.
Yeah, we're moving on. Moving on through topics.
Did also want to somewhat briefly talk about Enrique Delgado-Garcia, who was apparently, he turned up dead in a boxing ring at the Massachusetts State Police training facility. Apparently, he had, according to one news report, family members say that he had broken teeth and, head trauma and all kinds of stuff. The official byline has been, experienced some sort of emergency during a training situation and was later pronounced dead. This person also worked as a victim's advocate or a victim witness advocate in the Worcester County District Attorney's Office for about a year and a half until he left there to go to the academy. Apparently, had a long time goal of becoming a state police officer, and something happened. You put the injuries together with the result, it seems pretty obvious, but there's an investigation going on. Some state lawmakers have called for an independent investigation. There's been some speculation about maybe getting the feds involved, which I don't think is realistic because it's not a federal issue. Joe Early had a press conference earlier last week, I think Thursday, if I remember correctly, said that he would not be investigating the issue because he may be essentially recusing himself at his office because this person worked there. I guess John said that the state police have issued some sort of statement today about.
So I would say this. Right. I saw something on NBC 10. But I would say this, like, I'm also looking at the Mass State Police official news blog, and I don't know how it's possible that a state police officer dies, that it's not literally the first thing that you would see. Because normally, whenever there's a state police officer, so shame on you guys, because this is ridiculous. Why is this kid's face not on your thing? That should be the primary thing on your thing. It makes you guys look horrible. Like, we'll just put the kid's face up there. Like, what, or and then don't tell me that out of respect to the family, because normally if a state police officer is hurt or this, at least you have his uniform picture with the thing on there, and it's not on there right now, which is really aggravating. That's there. It's on NBC News 10. There's a statement that they called for a DA to be assigned like ASAP because Joe Early dropped out. But again,
there's talk that it's gonna, it sounds to me like they're headed toward special prosecutor type of stuff.
Yeah, which that's
I
not
believe
good.
it is Early's decision who to hand the case to. I think if that's the way he made it sound in his press conference, is that it's really his decision. And he said that he wasn't really interested in putting it on another DA either, because they still have to work with the state police department, right, to make cases. So, but yeah, I agree. The state police has a official news blog of the Massachusetts State Police, and it's basically their press releases. And the last one was September 10th, and there's multiple from that day. 1, 2, 3, 4, September 5th. I'm just reading through the dates. September 5th, there's 2. September 4th, September 3rd, August 29th, August 27th. Like, this is not them going 10 days without saying 12 days without saying anything is very abnormal.
I mean, it's not on anything. I'm looking at their Facebook, and if you go 2 days ago, they have a post for Patrolman Lowther, who died in 1924. Right? They have a post up right now, and they have another one 2 days ago from Frederick Mercer, who died in 1923. That on their Facebook. So there's 2 dudes who died 100 years ago, and and great that they're acknowledging somebody who passed away 100 years ago. Why is this kid not on their pages? This doesn't make any sense to me. It looks horrendous for them. It should be the first thing on every one of their pages.
And you look, the thin blue line, if you will, that don't be a rat, is especially prominent and has been very controversially prominent at the state police department. So they're just feeding the narrative right now, right? Not saying anything, not even acknowledging this kid's death. It's stunning to me. It's unbelievable to me.
Yeah.
I mean, there's an investigation going on and all of that. You could still acknowledge that somebody who they pinned his badge on him, or whatever the procedure is for state police, on his deathbed. They actually, made him officially a trooper before he passed, knowing that he was ultimately going to pass.
Yeah.
And
this is terrible.
And that they haven't even said anything. It's stunning.
So they have on the statement that I have on NBC 10, even the statement, the first thing they do is talk about their rigorous training program. Then they say sympathy to the family. The first thing should be sympathy to the family. Then you defend your rigorous training program that obviously went awry here. And again, I have no idea what it is. I can't say what it is. And for those of you, someone just texted me right now. And I am not an anti-cop person in any way, shape, or form. So for you to say that is stupid. You know that this person should be up on every single one of these blogs, posts, Instagram, Facebook. Come on, guys.
Time out.
Yeah.
Somebody literally just called you anti-cop.
Yeah. A local cop just texted me and was like, "Oh, you guys are going on and on about anti-cop stuff." And no, what I'm doing is I'm talking about a young man who was trying to become a state police officer whose death is very, very weird. And normally you would see something like this plastered on every single thing. And it was on the news stations for some days, but on their thing, it's not there. And so you can say whatever you want, and you can sit there in your little text message and send it to me, but because you won't come on the air and say it. I know that for sure. But get up there and question the state police about why this kid's face is not on there. Why is
that really pisses me off? Like,
it does. It's annoying.
This is literally a state police trooper. They pinned his badge before, or whatever the phrase is, before he passed away. So they made him a trooper before he passed. But this is somebody at the academy. He's dead with broken face, and all you see is. All you can interpret from how the state police is behaving is that they're rallying around themselves to make sure that whatever happens stays cool. Wow, that's anti-cop to be disgusted with that. That they've ignored this kid's death. That state police have ever ignored this kid's death. That's being upset about that's anti-cop.
Yeah, you can't ever question anything, and if you do, it's just
We should move on before I really lose it.
No. It's
just disgusting. It's just one of the stupidest things I've ever heard, frankly. This is anti-cop. Go look at my interview on Wednesday. Whoa, blood pressure high. Anti-cop to be sticking up for a dead kid.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy. Why, I'm looking at some of the things like this is really not great. I mean, why is the ACLU getting involved with this? Why is the governor making a statement separate from the state police? Normally, when this happens, the governor's up there and all the state police captains are behind her, right? Or whoever the governor was at the time. What is going on, guys? Like, seriously, what is going on? And I understand you guys are under a tremendous amount of pressure because you had a really bad situation with a state police officer testifying in a case that I'm not trying to get involved in that stupid thing, but just being just a horrendous example for the police department, right? And here's the amazing thing, right? That guy, he's on leave, but how come I haven't seen, the police officers demanding that dude's being fired, right? But they'll call for us to be shut up. But that dude got up there and embarrassed your entire fraternity, and I don't hear anybody calling for them. Right, so call for the people. I want to see you stand up and call for those folks to be fired that have done wrong, and then get up there and whoever your captains are that are running that stupid blog, put that kid's picture up there now. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Oh. We're both getting angry. This is just not just like how can they? Just stupid.
Stupid. A cadet, a trainee, dies in the training facility,
and the first thing you do is circle.
And you have to yeah, exactly.
Circle the wagon.
Gangster behavior.
We got to protect our own.
Don't be a rat. Sound like Tony Soprano, but don't point that out.
Yeah, don't be a rat. That what your job is to tell on people. It's literally what you paid to do. And you call people rats. Right? You guys are ridiculous.
Yeah, just and it's just leveraging public support for law enforcement as a cudgel to shut people up.
This is not an anti. That's the other thing. The kid is a police officer. That's what he was trying to do. He should be celebrated for trying to be a hero. His whole everything of the family. Just what he was trying to do is amazing. And so it's crazy. Paul has something to say about the state police. Believe me, Paul has a very difficult. Anyways, Paul's a good dude. That's a good friend of mine from a long time ago. Hi, Paulie. How you doing, buddy?
It is us that is damaging the integrity of policing, not the dead trainee at the state police department.
Yeah, the kid should be. They should whatever, and they should be. That kid should be being celebrated everywhere. And
congratulations to that person. They got a rise out of me.
Oh yeah. Thanks a lot for that text. That really.
Woo! Okay, moving on. So I am working on a piece that isn't quite finished yet.
Hey Tommy, if you want to talk about police misconduct, you need to interview Paulie one of these days. Paul is the guy that you need to interview. He would be a great interview for you. Great dude.
Well, fair enough. Right. I want to get off this topic before I say
something. Yeah, we're gonna go. We're gonna get upset and start yelling.
For a dead kid, unreal.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So I'm working on a story. I asked for some information from City Hall on the city's payroll. They didn't give me what I asked for and didn't cite an exemption as to why, as they're supposed to. But Massachusetts public records law is absolutely pointless because it has no enforcement mechanism, so they can basically do whatever they want, and they do.
Slow play.
Yeah, slow play. Waiting for records since May. They're supposed to be done in 10 days. It's unbelievable. For something that has a deadline in October. Ironic. Now I'm all irritated. It's going to be a fun rest of the show. The city was nice enough to provide me with a number of employees that live inside and outside Worcester, and percentage of so we have a percentage for that, and also the total payroll for people that live in and out of Worcester. One interesting thing about this is the percentage of payroll, for each of those categories doesn't change whether you do gross pay or base pay or any of the other options, without detail or with detail. They all kind of play out the same percentage wise, which I thought was interesting. But the bottom line is of the was it 8,016 employees? This is 2023 numbers. 53%, 4,244 live inside Worcester, which, I mean, you'd like to see that higher, but at least it's, majority. But then if you look at the gross payroll, it actually flips. It's actually 53% of gross payroll is paid to people outside Worcester. So that's the average earnings for each of those employees. If you live inside Worcester, it's about just under 59,000. And if you live outside Worcester, it's a little bit over 74,000. And so, like, there's not enough data there to really understand what's actually going on here, right? Like, that would take a lot more study, a lot more research, and certainly a lot more data. Is it that the city can't find skills in the city, so it's hiring skilled people with more skills who naturally make more money outside the city? Is it that some of those people are long-time employees, and as they have moved up the ladder and increased, their wage, did they move because they made more money? And then, like, what are the reasons for that? So I actually think that this could be a really good starting point for some deep research into why people are choosing to live in and outside the city. I'm sure housing costs play a role, but again, how many of those city employees are new? City's hired a bunch of people, but it didn't have this explosion, right? The majority of those 8,000, I would imagine, have been at least a year, if not more. Probably much more than the majority, right? So there's probably some interesting data there. I'm not saying it's I don't think you should come to any conclusions based on this, but it should be a starting point to some research that I think the city should do that it probably won't.
I don't know. I actually, to be honest with you, let me defend the current chief of police again, and Paul Saucier. So he did say on the episode of Manny Show that he wanted to be able to increase like a quota, like a specific number. He thought it should be closer to 80% of people that actually live in the city of Worcester. He knew that it would be difficult. He went into talking about how it's hard to have like an enforceable cap for that, because that's a difficult thing to do. But you could have an incentive. Yeah. That's based on where you live. So if you live in the city, you get an incentive. There's some kind of incentive-based program there. The interesting thing is that, so the spikes in rent really have happened over the last 10 years, right? It's been about a 10-year run, right? And I'm not saying there was no other spikes before that, but the really massive spike in rents have happened over the last 10 years. And yes, for my folks that are more conservative, rents went up during President Trump's, administration, just as much as they've gone up during the current President Biden's administration. So, and they did go up during Barack Obama. It's been a long time run since the housing crash in 2008 that we've seen these massive rents, specifically rental spikes, have gone up, while property values have also spiked, but that's kind of been more recent too, right? And so, that I don't know that, you can't draw a conclusion. This is just anecdotal evidence that I've seen, but I do see what you're saying, that maybe some of the more senior officers who've made more money would make a decision to move out of the city. But that's the thing that I would want the city manager, the city council, the mayor, the chief of police to think about. Why would you earn more and then leave if this is the city that you love and care about? And what is it about our city administration that gets people to feel like that I want to retire in, I don't know. I get Florida, guys. I understand it. Everybody wants to go where it's warm, but shouldn't Worcester retain its people if there is some correlation? And again, I'm not saying that there's any correlation, because Tom's just presenting just some basic information. We don't really have the full breadth of research. But if there is a correlation of city staffers in different departments moving outside of the city of Worcester, what are you guys doing wrong that's making that happen? Because the money is good enough for them to keep working in the job, but the city is not a place that they want to live.
So look, a few things. First of all, nobody should take from this data and make any assumption about any city employee. Okay, individuals and or people, or families are going to do what's in their best interest, as they should.
But I can't brush broad strokes, Tom. I can't brush broad strokes.
But it should be a point of inquiry for the city why can't they attract people to work here who want to live here? Or if that's the case, there's a whole bunch of possibilities, right? People could be moving, as I mentioned. We don't really know what the scope is here. But it should be, I would think, something that'd be interesting to understand as a case study in the city as a whole. What are we doing that is pushing people or attracting people or whatever? It seems like with 8,000 employees, it could be a whole wealth of data there, right? With about just below half living outside the city. It seems to me like there's a lot of interesting data that could be uncovered there with some deep diving. And don't sleep on the Southwest. Listen, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere where it's that hot. I don't care if it's wet, hot Florida or death hot Arizona. I'm not going. Too hot.
I'll be honest. So actually, I used to go on vacation a lot in Scottsdale. I used to, back in the day, in the old John Keogh business days, I used to go down for a bunch of business conferences in Scottsdale, and it was amazing down there. But then there was this one time we went tubing on the Snake River, right? And I'll never forget this day. And it was cloudy and it was drizzling, right? This was like middle of July. And we went on a tube cruising down the Snake River. And of course, I took my shirt off and I'm sitting in the tube and I'm rolling down the river. I'm like, it's fine. It's cloudy. I got the worst sunburn ever in my life, because the sunburn is not caused by the sun. It's caused by the UV rays from the sun, right? So it can actually be cloudy out and you can still get a sunburn. And I got cooked. And as you can tell, I'm very Irish, and I turned very red. As red as this rose is right here on my shirt, I turned. It is a dry heat, but man, it'll cook you real quick. Sorry, quick anecdote, John.
No,
Anecdote.
You're fine. I'm just trying to think of what other institutions I need to kowtow to not get insulted. Again, not a great wealth of data there. What I really wanted to do was do a distribution of how city payroll is, or do a map that shows the distribution of city payroll dollars, amongst the surrounding towns and whatnot. Wasn't able to do that. There's legitimate privacy concerns there. They just didn't tell me that was the concern. So, if for me to do that, you would have to tell me which employee lives in which towns, and I would, of course, never publish that, but there's legitimate privacy concerns there. So just an interesting data point that I think should be pulled out more. Mayor Petty just dropping bombs at City Council on Tuesday.
Yes, he did. It was a big bomb too.
So Councilor Russell brought an item to the floor seeking to give City Council the power to make actual budget changes, right? So as it works right now, City Council as a group hires the city manager, and when it comes budget time, the city manager proposes a budget, and all that the people that we elect can do is reduce the overall budget. So just to use an absurd example to illustrate the point, if a city manager says, I've got $50,000 in my budget to start building a spaceship, or we're gonna put a satellite. Let's go. We're gonna launch our own satellite, okay? And City Council goes, that's absurd. You're not doing that, right?
So many jokes.
And so all they can do is cut the budget by $50,000. Now, right, if the city manager wants to, through another allocation or whatever, there are limits, right, to move money from departments. You'd have the council has to okay that. But if there was, if it was a city department with $20 million in it, and he wanted to spend, $50,000 on this, and they cut the budget by all they can do is cut the overall budget. So if he wants to spend that money anyway, he can. And the only thing City Council can actually do, implicit power, is fire the city manager. That's all they really have to do as in response. And firing the city manager is not really an option.
His contract.
Well, yeah, and that's not necessarily an option, really. Like, yeah. I mean, it would have to be something pretty egregious to just say you got to go and nobody's running the city, And we have an assistant city manager who's in the middle here, maybe
Yeah.
I don't know the background of our current assistant city managers, but it could be somebody who's not been an assistant city manager very long, and now you have somebody kind of
Who
inexperienced.
is the current assistant city manager?
I did this too, and I'm gonna blank on their names this minute. But
right?
a whole bunch of nightmare scenarios could happen if you just tell the city manager today's your last day, brother. So
hey, real quick, I can't help it, right? My film company is Hollywood, and what you made me think about was a Woodalite instead of a satellite. A Woodalite is what I thought immediately. No, nothing. No, that didn't land at all. There are people on Twitter laughing a storm right now. That's a fact. It's an absolute. there are laugh emojis being put across various channels, Tom.
And so in the course of that discussion about Councilor Russell's, which I support entirely, I don't care. And it's irrelevant to me if they're appointed, elected, or whatever. No one person this year, the city's budget, I mean, a lot of it comes from the state for education, granted, but city's overall budget, the budget that the city is administering is $894 million. We're going to be at $1 billion this decade for sure.
Yep.
Probably
we might
28
$1 billion next year.
That would be a big jump. If I played it out, if they did what they did this year was a 3% increase. If they do 3% every year, I think it was 28 that we hit $1 billion. Nonetheless, we're closing in on $1 billion. And the idea that one person has that much authority over the budget, I think, is ludicrous. Doesn't matter who that person is.
Yeah,
I don't care if whomever your holy book may tell you that is the supreme being. I don't care if they come down. They should not have sole authority to administer $1 billion. Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, the big thing to me, the takeaway from this, I mean, George has been pushing for this for a while. He does bring up very good points during the budget hearings. If you ever want to see some fun at City Council, the Esther Howland Chamber, go watch George nitpick some of the things on the budget. But some of the things that are added there or put there are legitimately questionable things. It's not necessarily a gazebo in the middle of somebody's backyard, but there's some weird projects that get added to the budget that you're like, that make you ask, like, how did that happen? And then, I thought George made a real good point. They didn't spend all the pothole money that they had allocated from last year for this year, yet we definitely have terrible potholes, but some of the other things that were like pet projects of various city personnel, those things got done. And so it's like, what is the priority? Is it the personnel that has a particular project that they think needs to be done, or is it the city's people that is the priority, and making sure that living conditions and the roads are workable? Unless, I guess they could just let potholes get really worse. Maybe that'll solve the driving problem, because people have to go much slower if there's giant potholes in every street that are worse than they are now.
Legit question from Shawnee. I do not know.
The answer is yes. They hired several budget consultants. That was actually one of the points that Councilor Russell brought up was, what are we elected? He said, I think he said this on the second day of the thing. I went to 3 of the different sessions, and he brought up, what's the point of having a city council to consult on the budget if you're going to hire consultants on the budget? And the consultant firm that they hired, I don't believe it's a Worcester-based firm. I think it's an outside firm. And so that's something that's an argument, a question, should the city manager not allow the city councilors to actually consult on the budget? So again, this isn't to criticize the current city manager. This is how it
has nothing to do. Let me be very clear. I'm going to say something about the solicitor in a minute. Has nothing to do with the current human being serving in that role. Has nothing to do with the current human being serving in the city manager's role. It's about good governance. And the fact that the city charter, which is, if you don't know, is sort of like the constitution of the city. It's, defines what the branches of government are, the executive branches, the city managers, the operations, and then legislative branches, city council, and, sort of like the federal constitution does. Every city and town in the state is required to have one. ours was created almost 40 years ago. I think it was 1985 or 86. So closing in on 40 years. And I know these talking points well. The population. The population is 30,000 higher than it was then, and actually between then and now it dipped. It went down 20,000. So you're talking about essentially 50,000 new people in the city at the very least. And the budget since that time has tripled. So it's a much different place than it was 40 years ago. And maybe, just maybe, we should take a look at, is this form of government still appropriate for a city this size?
And another thing, and this is something that people find difficult to talk about because they don't want to step on landmines and they're afraid. And this is why, I'll never be Tom Brokaw, but we'll get to a certain level. But you have to talk about these things. The population composition has radically changed in those 40 years.
Yep.
And so you're talking about a city that was like 90% Irish and Italians, and now it is not. It is definitely not those numbers. And so we have much, we have a much more diverse population. Obviously, the amount of languages that are spoken in the city is amazing. Blows my mind. When we talk to the superintendent, and she talks about the 60 plus languages that are spoken in the public schools, and then teachers having to prepare for that. It's unbelievable. So that's the future, though. You have to deal with the reality. You can say, I don't like this, or I don't, whatever, but whether you like it or not, here's where we are. How do we manage the government for that future? What does it look like? And do we want to manage it well, or do we want to hold on to the things that we think work correctly for us? And are you a steward or are you a king? Is what it is. Are you a steward or are you a king? And people have a difficult time in their own lives, let alone when they're in a position of authority, right?
I think we kind of talked past the point. So in the middle of this debate on the council floor about Councilor Russell's order about the budget, and his order was like, looking for information back from the solicitor on how we'd go about doing that, right? Looking for the process. And in the midst of that debate, Mayor Petty, who doesn't come down from, to speak on an item, he actually has a step down formality, he has to step down from the chair's position to actually speak on the floor. He doesn't do that too often, but did on this. And I got to tell you, I was pretty shocked when he said, I think it's time for a charter commission. So a charter. So there's two ways you can change a charter. You can do it by amendment, or you can constitute a charter commission, which is an elected body. So in theory, hopefully this will happen. The council will vote to put the question on the ballot. There'll be a question: do you, yes or no? Do you want to have a charter commission? That's obviously not the exact language. You get it. On that same ballot, it's a very odd process, and this is state law too. This isn't unique to Worcester. On that same ballot, you elect a 9-person charter commission. Which is, of course, only seated if the question passes. So it's all voters have to authorize this to be constructed and vote for and elect the members of it. And then they have basically, they don't have a full 2 years. They have probably 18 months to finish their work. And so that the question, it then has to go back to another ballot question. Voters have to accept whatever it is that that commission proposes. So it's a two going to be on two elections to happen.
And if I'm right, we've talked about this before. You've explained this before, but the charter commission proposes like a series of planks, right? And then those planks, if they're hitting different parts of the charter, have to be voted on separately. Is that correct?
No. Well, it depends on the charter commission. It has wide latitude to propose amendments or propose a full new charter. But as far as I know, it's only one question. I wonder if they could. I do not. So that's an interesting. I do not know if they can propose a series of amendments and those are voted on. I've not come across that in any of the literature. Largely, when this happens, though, a charter commission will propose an entirely new charter. Might have a lot of similarities to the last one, but you'll just have the voters vote on the whole thing. Typically, is what happens.
So I do want to say this. I want to get out ahead of this early, 9/22/2024. So I want to give the mayor his flowers. Good job on Mayor Petty, who continues to show his ability to operate as a skilled politician in the city of Worcester, which has many swampish characteristics, and he does a very, very good job of navigating what is happening, what happened, and building this coalition that he's had a sustainable electorate behind him now for 6 terms, and it looks like pretty strong going into a 7th term. We'll see what happens in the next election, right? But I would say this, sometimes what Mayor Petty does is a bellwether for how other people are thinking, right? And so I want to make sure that people who are in the that kind of group or area, if you're thinking you're going to get the charter commission and then stack it with people, let me tell you, I'm gonna, not just me but Tom and Manny and other local media people, we're gonna really, really, really bring the focus on the individuals who are on the charter commission. Like, this isn't gonna skate down the road and be something where you can just push through what you want. There does seem to be consensus, at least, for the ability to get into and dig into at least the budget process, right? And then, of course, the thing that came up on Manny's show, which you could go back and watch, it's pretty funny. The mayor brought up people holding things forever or holding things, out of nowhere for just no reason, because it just didn't feel like dealing with it that way.
There's some wacky stuff in the rules too. The hold, though, which everybody is annoyed with. Any one councilor can hold any item that's on the agenda for at least once. And they hold it once, then you need 4 items to hold it again. 4 votes to hold it again, rather. That's in the charter, so they couldn't change that if they wanted to without going through either the amendment process or a commission.
But it's a weird one, right? Because Robert's Rules of Order isn't a hold. Like, anyway, generally speaking, the tabling and the holding process is a little bit different than the other traditional boards that kind of exist around New England. There's a little bit different approach here.
Yeah. I mean, and this is in the rules, but it takes, I think it takes 8 votes to discharge something from committee. So if something's gone to committee and they're sitting on it, you need more votes to get it out of committee than you need to change it. I mean, to pass it, which is silly. But nonetheless, the other thing to me too, that I am, if you've listened to this show or seen me a couple places in public talk about this, or you just talked to me about it, our city charter, and this is rooted in state law. Towns do not have separate. They have basically one branch of government, right?
Right.
If you have a town meeting thing, that's a whole different ball of wax. But if you have a select board in a town, the board is actually the executive, and town manager is just they call them other things, a few other titles they use around the state. But essentially, the town manager is a hired gun. Does what he's told. In cities, there's 2 branches of government: the legislative and executive branch. Our charter defines that as well, and we don't have that. And the most pressing example to me is to get an ordinance. City council has to get it drafted by the solicitor who works at serves at the pleasure of the city manager. They have to ask the administration for reports. This doesn't happen in functional legislatures. In Boston, for example, their city councils are full time and have tons of staff, by the way. But they have here subpoena power, which they never use, because when they tell somebody they have to come, they just come because they don't want to be subpoenaed. That's usually how it works. And they access either by asking for documents or by asking questions in hearings. They're entitled to information. Here we have this onslaught every meeting of people asking for reports because it's the only way they can get data. And then, of course, the backlog of reports is so long that it enables the city manager to prioritize in accordance with his agenda. Right. And that means you don't have what I think one of the fundamental things government does is a competition of agendas, right? Everybody has their own idea, different variations of what they think is best, the best policy to solve any issue or for the city or whatever. And when the legislature, city councils, access to data is controlled by the executive's office, right? The city manager's office. I mean, he can wholly manage their access to data. I'm not saying he does that nefariously. And even if he does, you know what? that's the rules of the game he was handed.
Right.
Because again, a competition of agenda, and he naturally thinks that what he believes is the best agenda is the right one. So he's going to do what he can to implement his agenda. But that shouldn't be done at, siphoning data, basically, or, managing how data gets to the city council. So, I mean, this is a principle that, this is a principle that goes back to Madison, right? To the Federalist Papers, to the Massachusetts Constitution and such.
I don't know what's going on there. I don't know what's happening. I have no idea. I'm just going to ignore that.
Interesting.
I assume.
Yeah. And so, this principle goes back to colonial America, when they were trying to get the Constitution ratified, right? Co-equal branches of government, independent, with oversight amongst each other, right?
Right.
And I think as we close in on $1 billion budget, I think it's time to do something that looks a little more like that than what looks like a town system, which is kind of how we operate.
Yeah, to me, it's really about accountability. This is, there's another, what you were talking earlier about is the information in relation to the cable thing coming next month, right? There's data that you didn't receive, anyways, and so that's because next month there's a vote that is supposed to take place and is required by both the charter and the state on the cable license, and there's literally zero communication that has taken place since me and the other members of the cable commission resigned, and there's been one replacement vote. Yeah, I see.
Absolutely brilliant, Shawnee. Absolutely brilliant.
That's a train that just derailed right into my face. That was awesome, Sean. So, is the city manager just going to make a decision for the entire city and just decide to go with Spectrum? By the way, if you follow some of the posts that I've talked about the cable thing, Spectrum is a company that is losing money and is losing infrastructure all over the country. They're bleeding cash. They are not a good investment for a growing city. They're a bad investment. This is not just my opinion. This is borne by years of research, fact upon fact upon fact upon fact. If you go look at their share price, that they have been devalued by the market, they are outpacing every telecommunications company in devaluation. They are a bad bet for the city of Worcester. And I hope the city manager has heard this and doesn't make a bad decision. There's literally zero evidence over the past 40 plus years that this company has operated in the city of Worcester as Greater Media, as Spectrum, and as was Charter, and then as Charter Spectrum. 3 versions of the same company, same basic infrastructure, same buildings, right? It has zero evidence of delivering on it. But right now, under the current system that Tom's talking about, the city manager really can just do whatever he wants. and so that's the kind of accountability that needs to be restructured. Is there a comparable MSO out there that isn't in a bad spot? Well, let me say this, Sean. Why do we need one at all? We're on the cusp of a radical technological change. Why do we need to have cable? We don't, right? Anything that you want to have right now. What are you watching this on? Are you watching this on your phone or your tablet? Probably on direct.
So, but I mean, John, can you imagine
Yeah,
seniors?
We could dig into a long conversation, but what I'm saying is,
I mean, can you imagine seniors trying to make that transition? Like, it's not going to happen.
Because, and let me tell you that. I would say that that's not true. So at my church, I've helped to manage an aging population, and I have convinced most of them, like individually. I'm telling you, I've signed people off of Charter Spectrum myself. I'm probably personally responsible for hundreds, if not thousands, of people in the city of Worcester disconnecting their Spectrum cable, that and 100%, and their internet, and transitioning to other companies. And so, and I have no problem, no shame in saying that, because they are a bad company. Municipal broadband would be a great solution, because we actually have an example. Here's where we have it, Sean, is in Shrewsbury. We have an unbelievably well-managed, organization that is spitting cash into the city of Shrewsbury, so much so that they have expanded radically beyond the original intention of what size of employees and infrastructure that it was ever going to have, which means our city is way bigger, way bigger than Shrewsbury. If there was a way to manage it well, we could probably actually generate cash for the city from it instead of losing money, which is what we're doing now. So, but that's, again, this goes back to Tom's point about the charter. The city manager does not really have to agree. It doesn't matter. The public hearings that the city council holds have no legal binding upon the city manager. None at all. So
None.
the city, all 11 of them could say, we recommend that you not do this. And he can go around just like Mike O'Brien did. When this contract was signed 13 years ago, there was a majority vote by the city council that they voted and said, we do not want this license to be extended. And Mike O'Brien signed the deal like 2 months before he left and just told them, hey, I already signed it. It's a done deal because he has that authority. So Eric could do the same thing.
Yeah, and seems if I was a betting person, I would bet that that's probably what's going to happen.
And I hope
he surprises me. I hope he surprises
with him that that's not what happens. I plead.
And just again to further the point, there is an order, a chairman's order from the Urban Technology and I forget what else it's called subcommittee of City Council that was then supported by all 11 councilors to engage in I forget the exact language, if it was get details on a feasibility or engage in a basically it was do a feasibility study, and it doesn't even appear on the list of pending orders.
I mean, isn't that weird? How does a chairman's order just get taken off? Is that in the charter, Tom? Is there like rules and regulations for orders appearing and disappearing? Isn't there supposed to? Oh, really? They could just disappear? Weird how that works, man. Strange things happen in the government.
And so in that instance, I mean, of course, it would test the mettle of how badly councils wanted this, because in a real legislature, they would just allocate the money for that specific purpose.
Right. And so in this case, it does test their mettle about this. I'm only one vote. I only have one vote, and I'm a District 4. Resident. So I have one district councilor I'm voting for, and then the rest of the at-larges and whoever runs for mayor. I may only have one vote, but let me tell you, the cable decision is on the ballot. So where you fall on whatever the city manager decides, if all of a sudden you guys all become shills for Charter Spectrum over the next few months after the city manager, if you start, hey, this is the best decision for us and yada, 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 you will be held accountable. I promise you. Every time there's a person who has an issue with their bill, and there will be people who have issues with their bills, I'm going to record them and I'm going to bring them to whichever district they're in, and I'm going to show it to the district councilor. This is on the ballot next year. It may be the only thing I can ever do, but it is definitely on the ballot. So be prepared to have to deal with it and have to answer those questions for the next year straight. So,
yeah. So, So I mean, there's a few examples of, and look, there's so many reports asked and so many orders and blah blah blah. Couldn't possibly fill them all, right?
Yeah.
And that's why, in my view at least, City Council needs to be able to obtain its own information directly from department heads and people that work within departments. That's typically how it goes. I have a laundry list of things that I would like to see done. Just one last note about the process. So again, this process is governed by state law, so it requires public hearings. Of course, all the meetings are open to the public, fall into public meeting laws, or open meeting laws, and again, have required public hearings. So it is, people will get to have their say for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
And there'll be people who will say what they need to say.
That's true.
That's true.
I will be one of them. And then
maybe we'll go on the same night.
Oh, I mean, and last thing, John wanted to talk a little bit about the end of the Worcester Red Sox season, and Polo Park goes dark for 6 months. I'm glad we paid $100 million for it.
Pretty much. So, I want to say that they do have several events that are scheduled. I mean, there was the wrestling thing, which is cool, and there's a couple other things coming up on the schedule. But I want to say this: the WooSox season is over. And there are no home games for the WooSox between now and February. right? And it's actually, I think it's March. I think they do some spring training games up here in March. But basically, so let's just say September's over. October, November, December, January, February, 5 months that stadium has no baseball operating in it. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt and say it takes a week to clean it up and set it up for the season, and then it takes a week at the other end, to set up. So you're looking at 5.5 months versus 6 months, right? Or 4.5 months, or whatever number that it is. That's a lot of days. That's 100+ days that stadium is sitting not being used. And they did not use any of the 10 days that the city is allocated to operate community programs this year. This is an albatross around all of the people who voted. And listen, I'm not anti-Polar Park. I have no problem with the baseball stadium down there. My problem was with the process. It's how do you make these decisions? Are you really collaborating with the community? Who is making it, and why are you making these decisions? I want to connect it real quickly to the DCU Center. The DCU Center is also a municipally owned building. Most people don't realize that. DCU pays naming rights to the city of Worcester for that building, but it is not run by the DCU Bank. DCU Center technically they're not direct city employees, but they're like city employees adjacent, right? So they're related to the city, and
they hire a contractor. They hire a company to run it.
They hire a company to contract out, right? A vendor, right? So, but the point is that building also is often dark and empty. And I know this because sometimes I've reached out to them to try to book events and try to figure things out. And part of the reason that they're dark and empty is because they charge exorbitant prices that there's no market for. And how do I know there's no market for? Because it's empty and not functioning. And so now apparently it must make them more money to keep it not used than to use it. But that doesn't make any sense. If you truly believe in managing a city of this size well, you should have a bumping stadium and a bumping arena. Those things should be full with concerts and events and conventions and all this other stuff. In fact, we just had a letter from the shadow government say that the 2 hotels that are going to do is going to make a huge impact and it's going to ruin the universe, right? Yeah. So, but the thing is that I'm trying to figure out what universe it's ruining, because there isn't anything booked. And not only that, it's incredibly difficult to book things at those venues. It's not easy to do. Why isn't there a simple form? If there's a community person that wants to do some event, I'm not even talking about myself. I could care less about it. But what I'm saying is there should be a very simple process to be able to use that stadium. And I know that I do events sometimes. We have the red carpet premiere coming up at the Parkview Room. But man, if there was a chance for me to put a movie in a stadium, I'm going to jump at the chance. Can I write the check for that? No, but I could try to find some partners if I had access to pull apart and change the game, right?
Right. And in the contract with in the lease, so the city owns the park, leases it to the team. Right. In the lease, the city has 10 days, as John mentioned, 10 events a year it can do. It has done, I think it used it for some graduations and whatnot during COVID, the first year. But it basically doesn't do it. And if it does, it's like stuff like that. It does, these are revenue generating opportunities. And the city says that, well, it doesn't have the capacity or the wherewithal to, doesn't know how to do that. Well, first of all,
I do.
What?
That's what I do.
And second of all, and second of all, I don't know, Mass Concerts, which is owned by a wonderful human being, John Peters, who, as a kid, 100 years ago, I worked at the Palladium, where he's been doing shows 100 years. He owns that building along with Cliff Rucker, I believe. Also happens to be one of the biggest concert promoters in the country.
Yeah, and by the way, the Palladium.
Why don't you call him
up? Booming. They have concerts literally in the parking lot diagonally across from the DCU Center on a regular basis while the DCU is dark. I'll give a perfect example with Silver Scream Con, right? So the Silver Scream Con was just last weekend. They had thousands of people come through. In the interest of full disclosure, I own a horror convention, or a part owner of a horror convention in February at Mechanics Hall. That's a competitor with Silver Screen Con. But I don't believe in anti-competition. Like, it's great to have more things coming to the city of Worcester. However, they had to move the concert for Ice Nine Kills, which is a really big and very popular band, to the Palladium diagonally across the street, and they didn't have it at the DCU Center. again, missed opportunity for the city. Wow. And part of the reason is, and the lead singer for Ice Nine Kills put it out there, is the city charges too much. And so, and there are places all around us that are smaller facilities or equal facilities that charge much less, particularly at the casinos in Connecticut and Rhode Island. They're just smashing the city's prices. So the thing is that if we do believe in these housing market prices, where we're going to jack up the rent for everybody in the city, and that's markets determined, and it's determined by the market, why isn't the DCU Center and Polar Park also allowing things to be determined by the market, right? It is only something that is used when it's convenient for them and makes the developers happy. So you got to start thinking these things through. It's literally obvious in all our faces. And stop managing the city like the people of Worcester are stupid, because we're not. We know what you're doing. We see it in front of our faces. And maybe this charter commission is the tool that we're going to use to make these changes that are necessary to be made.
Yeah, and I mean, what's Polar Park capacity is a little under 9,000, a little under 10,000 rather for baseball games. So you imagine with a concert, stage would be on the, like they do it. If you look at Fenway, for example, they put more people in there for a concert than they do for a ball game. So you have over 10,000. If you do some math at $50 tickets, $75 tickets for something, I mean, there's a lot of revenue there. Of course you have a lot of costs, but I mean, if you're basically handing this to a concert promoter who's basically, do an event that is at least free rent. I mean, there's other costs like, and I think this might be some of the hang up. I haven't really looked into it, but, part of that is, the team is already leasing that property. So any food service that you need during the game or other services you need, you have to go through the team, and maybe that's cost prohibitive. I don't know. But I mean, it just seems like if you're getting the place for free, that there's money to be made there. And why don't, whatever it is, especially if somebody else is doing it, it's just free money for the city.
Hey, what Sean is saying right there is an amazing idea. I love that idea. They should open it and let those food vendors continue to operate. A lot of those are local companies that made the big jump to coincide the stadium, right? And so give them a shot. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. You want to make a walkable city, right? Wouldn't it be cool for them to walk around through the concourse of Polar Park, right? So let them go around there, sell their pizza, sell their stuff like that. I don't know why that's a bad thing. Why does the shop close? The WooSox shop only operates on like a super limited schedule. And please, I just don't want to hear anybody tell me that the WooSox and the Red Sox can't afford to staff a retail establishment all year. Stop it. I don't want to hear that. Please don't go down those roads with me with those major, massive corporations. It's nonsense.
With the sponsors they have, please.
It's ridiculous. It's not. It's crazy. They own it. They own a TV network. They own an entire freaking TV network. They print cash. It's unbelievable. And if you really believe the cry poor owners of the Red Sox, John Henry and the nonsensical team, they miss Larry Lucchino.
Well, no, hold on. The Red Sox don't own that.
Yes, they do.
Some company in New York does that owns about 500 minor league teams, because baseball has a lot of integrity that one company can own a bunch of minor league teams.
Yeah. It's not weird that a thing that happened. Anyways, we could get into that, but if you go look at some of the shareholders for that New York-based company that is offsite, that has no relation to the Red Sox, it's really strange how Fenway Sports Group owns a lot of shares of that company too. Weird how that happens.
Well, I mean, sure, but
that neither here nor there, right? It just makes no sense.
That's not surprising.
Be open and available and usable. I was walking. By the way, I'm not complaining about the stadium. It's beautiful. I was walking down there the other day. The giant baseballs out there with all the Red Sox history is great to see. It's it's cool looking. It looks nice. I'm not saying it doesn't look nice.
Where are the bricks anyway?
Yeah, they haven't finished. It's also an unfinished project, which is very weird, right? They didn't build the hotel that they were supposed to build behind there. They're still building the thing on Green Street. I did see people have moved into the Revington, into the Cove thing. So I see lights on in some apartments. Maybe those are baseball players. I don't know who lives there.
Maybe doing work inside. Yeah.
Yeah, but it seems like people are starting to move in. But if they're open, because I did see that the Revington is open for leasing. Are they leasing every apartment? Because market rate determines it, so that should be high demand, right? We should just see a flood of people coming from Boston and Framingham, right?
Oh, I'm sure they'll rent them all. I don't know
Oh
who
yeah,
people are there saying, but
we'll see.
but Yeah. So I mean, it's just I think the most irritating.
15-minute.
Yeah, I think the most irritating thing about them just like letting those dates at the Polo Park slide is like, I mean, you look around the city again. I'd say it all the time. It is the seventh poorest city as far as median household income of the 59 cities in Massachusetts. It is the seventh poorest, and you see nothing in the city but people scrounging every last penny they can to get by, and the city just leaves money on the table at
And,
Polo
and
Park.
and those are events where you could pay people money. You
Yep.
really could, and it's
Yep.
money that city doesn't have to pull out of its normal operating budget to pay, like they do with the election commission. I work as an election inspector, and they have kept the same rates for like a decade because they can't afford it because they can't pull it out of the general budget. I completely understand, but in this case, it's literally free money because people will go and buy hot dogs and candies and all kinds of stuff. They do. So why
Well, I
not?
think that's part of the rub here is I'm not sure how that all breaks down. Like I think concessions the team probably owns because that's all their
Sure,
operation. But I mean,
sure.
nonetheless, I don't care if it's 20 grand. You're leaving it on the table.
But you could throw up, like, if you want, like what Sean's suggesting, right? If you open the concourse, you could still throw a ton of vendors in there. You could let them rent it for the day for $25 or $50. They'll make a killing. You just, dude, all these we just saw at Start on the Street and Pride and the Centro, the Latin American Festival, and the Out to Lunch series. The people of Worcester come out for these festivals and these events where there's vendors out and present, and they buy stuff. They do. That's why they keep doing these events, right? I understand Start on the Street, but Start on the Street's not going anywhere because people didn't show up. It's not going anywhere because that group of people doesn't want to do it anymore. Really, is what it comes down to. And
Yeah,
so,
it's a lot
but
of work,
it's a lot of work. It's a tremendous amount of work. But
and
the
they have other stuff
vendors
going on.
all showed up. There was 200 plus vendors there. Same thing at the Pride Festival, right? You got all these tents up and down the whole city of Worcester, and that's just two events. And what about the African Festival and the Summer Jam Classic with vendors upon vendors upon vendors upon vendors. There is demand for this stuff in the city. Those businesses are surviving based on the local people of Worcester giving them money. So if you gave them a place where they could go on a regular basis, it's gonna work. It's gonna work.
Well, not even on a regular basis. If it's a one-time event, or they
Yeah,
do, I
once a
mean,
month.
it just pisses me off that they leave money on the table, and it's just
Yeah.
the last time we heard about this was around the time that they were debating about the ballpark commission that I'm not sure
Yeah.
what they do, and yet we retain them because I don't know.
They
And
get paid. Those guys get paid.
no, they don't.
No, they don't. They're not
No,
paid.
no. That's
Really?
just it's just like any other commission. Yeah.
Wow, that's news to me. That
But
should be a paid job.
for what? What do they do?
All the commissions and boards should be paid. They should all be paid. You'd have more vested interest in it.
But
That's why.
nonetheless, it's again, 10 free days, 10,000 people you can put in that place, and they don't do it. I mean, and the minor league baseball, they play 5-game series, don't they? Or
It
6-game
depends.
series. They play they play mostly 6-game series. So this team is gone for weeks at a time. I mean, it's not like you couldn't do this.
Yeah, the longest home stretch they had this year, I think, was 12 games. They had a 12-game stretch in like between June and July, but most of the time it's a week, then they leave because minor league baseball they usually have guaranteed Mondays off, right? So then it's Tuesday to Sunday, and then they
Yep.
fly or travel,
Yep.
and that's generally how it works. Yeah. So, by the way, the WooSox did pretty good for the minor leagues. They're not a bad team. They're a pretty good franchise. They're doing pretty well. But how do you integrate those things? How do you get those things? One of the things we could go down. There's a million paths, but realistically, like you see the mascots, but what about the players getting more integrated with the city and coming out to city events? And you can't tell me they don't want to because that's how baseball players market themselves is social media and all that kind of stuff. So why wouldn't you want to figure out how to do more stuff with them? Do more stuff with them.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to tell
let
the
me do it.
team
I'll do it.
to.
I'll book that stadium full tomorrow. Let me start selling tickets. I got you.
Yeah, and imagine, and rightfully so, to go to the team and actually rent that place is probably astronomical. I know I priced I think it was going to be a 4-hour event at the DCU Center, and this was many years ago, maybe 2018, 2017, maybe before that. And I know it was, it was, I think, short of 20 grand, but well into, well on its way to 20 grand for 4 hours. Part of it's a union shop, so the wages are a little higher and good. We like that. But yeah, no, it's incredibly expensive to do. Incredibly expensive to do an event.
Very difficult. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
I think that is all.
No. This is the best time of the show.
Oh boy.
All the people watching on Twitter and Facebook and all the different places that they're watching, and the people who came and watched the show on Monday and Tuesday, the hundreds of viewers that just love the Tom and John show, right? They look for this part. This is the reason why they came. Is the question of the night about what Tom's favorite whatever is, right? And so we've been doing.
I hope somebody enjoyed me losing my mind a little bit more than this.
Yes, he was very upset at the beginning, so go back and watch and see Tom getting upset about a legitimate issue. So let's ask this question. This is a tough one, right? But because we're currently promoting a movie, right? Mandy J Media and Hollywood Film Group. We have the red carpet premiere of the Dirty Jaron Poetry Show documentary, October 11th at the Parkview Room. That's a plug. That's absolutely a plug. I'm going to ask a question of Tom. I'm not going to ask him what his favorite documentary is because that's I feel like that's a loaded question. But I am going to ask him.
I don't even know.
What is your favorite movie of all time?
Ooh,
tough question.
So this is going to have to be a multi-part answer. I mean, the greatest film ever made was The Godfather, and it's just a debate on which one you like better, 1 or 2, 3. Well, but so that's the predictable answer. The finest piece of filmmaking ever, I believe, was Ben Kingsley as Gandhi, and the rogue like indie film type of thing you wouldn't expect. Memento is I'm a big favorite.
Big Memento, right? Okay, Memento's a tough movie.
Yeah, so you go. You got three, very different films that I put at the top of my list.
Okay, so I would say my favorite movie of all time. Well, that's right. Let the best movie ever made, my favorite movie of all time, and then maybe like a modern kind of classic,
or like an indie, or like something that's not big budget.
Okay, so I would say that in my opinion, the best movie that was ever made, in my opinion, is the first Alien. It is one of the greatest pieces of cinema of all time. And by the way, the reason why people mostly don't see that is because they classify it as a sci-fi movie. The first Alien is not a sci-fi movie. It is a horror film. And if you understand it as a horror film, you get what I'm saying. Okay, so that's Ridley Scott. After that, by the way, all the other Aliens after that are all downhill from there. All downhill from there. So, Sean, my favorite movie of all time is probably Full Metal Jacket by Stanley Kubrick, who Sean just mentioned. 2001. Full Metal Jacket to me is one of the greatest examples. Of course, the Private Joker, the scene where the commanding officer is asking why he has a peace symbol on his jacket, and then it says the killing machine thing on his head, right? So this juxtaposition between a soldier who was born to kill, it said born to kill on his helmet, and he had a peace symbol on there, and the commanding officer couldn't figure out what that meant, and that really was a real amazing piece of filmmaking by Stanley Kubrick, where he asked a question: does America need to be in war? Do we want to have peace? What are we doing over there? What's the point of this kind of stuff that we're involved in? Great piece of filmmaking. It leaves you asking questions. And then as far as like a modern, like independent, so let's see. That's a really good question. One of the films that I've asked people about a lot that they haven't really seen is called Insomnia, and it has some big actors in it, but was a very small budget film at the time with Al Pacino and Robin Williams about a series of murders in Alaska. If you haven't seen that movie, go check it out. It's probably surprising people that I dropped those 3 movies, but those are probably the 3 movies.
That's all. I mean, I'm not even saying there's anything wrong with that. Full Metal Jacket is a great film, but it's like you're telling me that that's on par with Brando in anything, especially The Godfather.
So to me, so I'm going to say this. I don't rank Godfather as the best movie of all time. The second one is better than the first one in my opinion, but they're definitely in the pantheon of great movies ever. And so I think movies really, but I'll tell you this, you know what movie isn't great that is always consistently ranked at the top? Citizen Kane is not great. I don't care what anybody says, it is not a good movie. It's horrible, it's too long, it's overwrought, and that's like old Hollywood trying to impose their thoughts on us.
You know what? I'm even going to drop one more. I'm going to drop a foreign film.
Oh, foreign film. Let's go. I love it. Love it. Love weird foreign films.
Battle of Algiers.
Oh, it's a great movie.
It's unbelievable.
It's
it's if you've never seen this movie, yes, you will have to read subtitles unless you speak French. You must watch this film. It is. I think it's in black and white. I think it's been colorized in some versions. But it is about, and it is made by one of the people who participated in, and is about the Algerian uprising against French occupation in Algeria, and just gives you it doesn't romanticize anything. It is brutal at times, but really will I think give you a different appreciation for just the the long term, just what an exercise in futility occupation is of any people. It is well worth watching. It is a brilliant film.
And to check in for the geeks real quick, obviously I love the Lord of the Rings, and I love the original Star Wars movies, and I have degrees of like on the rest of the universes. which is a box that you could open, and I'm not talking about I don't want to go down this road too much, but female characters. If you are a Star Wars fan and you're upset that there's a female character, you're an idiot, because Leia literally was a groundbreaking character in the movies. So if you really think that way, you're foolish. The thing that you should critique anything on is writing, right? Is it well written or not, right? And so some of the stuff is well written and some of the stuff is not. It just is what it is. So you just got to deal with that. Same thing with all the movies, the Marvel movies too. The big franchise stuff. Some of them are good, some of them are bad, and there's people who it's a Marvel movie, I must watch. Well, sometimes no, you don't.
I don't care about this stuff. I like fantasy stuff. Lord of the Rings. I think I've seen a piece of the first one. Don't care.
Oh, it's great. Lord of the Rings.
But I mean, I want to do a little retraction. I'll take back finest film ever made, but the best single performance in any film ever in the history of filmmaking is Ben Kingsley's Gandhi. He's so incredible, it defies description.
That's so all-time acting. He's definitely there's like 5 people in that top echelon of acting, and he's definitely one of them.
Him, I mean? Brando, and I don't care about the rest.
Like Tom Hanks is not in that group.
No,
just Tom Hanks plays Tom Hanks in every movie. So stop telling me that he's a great actor. Stop it right now. No, he's not good. He's fine. He's America's dad. He's America's dad.
He is America's dad, and he's been very good and stuff. Let's not, but I mean, he's not.
But he's not.
He's not God level.
I don't know. I know you don't like the comic book stuff so much, but you got to check out the Penguin, dude. You really got to check out this. You got
probably not going to happen.
Colin Farrell's unbelievable, dude. He's unbelievable.
I am such a curmudgeon. I don't care. I mean, I saw the original 3 Star Wars, of course, as a kid. But I don't think I've seen any of anything after that. Don't care. I don't care about lasers in space.
Some of them stand alone. You don't have to watch all of them. If you watch Rogue One, that's a pretty good movie. I think one of the best of the new movies is Rogue One. And then the show that I think is the best is that one, Andor. It's a great show. It doesn't have to be in a Star Wars universe for you to watch it. So some people though need aliens and they need creatures. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know creatures.
Happy Hobbit Day. Today's Hobbit Day. So happy Hobbit Day to you, Tom.
All right. I demand that we be done before 1:30, and we're at 1:29 change. So we will attempt to screw it up less next week. Have a great week. Anybody that was listening earlier, welcome to reach out to me, and I promise I won't yell at you, even though I did earlier. Have a